Proverbs chapter 23, we're going to have like between 2 to 3 verses per little section. So we should go through it a little bit faster. So Proverbs chapter number 23, verse 1. When thou sittest to eat with a ruler, consider diligently what is before thee, and put a knife to thy throat, if thou be a man, give an appetite. Be not desirous of his dainties, for they are deceitful meat. Now, J. Vernon McGee, in his colloquialism, said this. He said that how he would translate is, don't make a pig of yourself when you're invited out to eat, especially if you're invited to a place that serves gourmet food. And he said it'd be better for you to cut your own throat than to make a pig of yourself. It's a decent application of that verse, but it goes a little bit deeper than that. The proverb is warning you that if you're invited to dinner with a ruler, you might want to put a knife to your throat because you're in danger. If you're with a ruler back then, we're thinking like the president or whatever, if you offend him, it would be in his right to have you put to death. And it says, if you're a man, give an appetite. If you make a pig out of yourself, you could offend the ruler, and because you offend the ruler, it could hurt you. This is warned that his dainties, the yummy food, the rich food, are deceitful food. They seem alluring, but there is a cost. The higher I go in the organization that I work for, I learned that I have at one point more latitude to act how I want to act and do what I want to do. And at the same time, I have less latitude. You say, how does that work? Well, I can decide what I'm working on, but at the same time, I'm held to a higher standard, and there's no such thing as I can let it go to voicemail. I have greater accountability than me. There's greater repercussions if I don't do my job, and there's more people looking at me to do my job, and I'm just a peon. You understand? The higher up you go, the worse it gets. And it reminds me of the story. Have you all ever heard of the story of Damocles? He was a courtier or one of the princelings around the king named Dionysus in Greece. He was talking to the king about how great, how rich the king is and how wonderful the food is, how comfortable all the stuff is. And the king says, I tell you what, Damocles, why don't you change places with me tomorrow? You can eat my food, you can sit in my chair, you can see what it's like to be king. He's like, okay. When he sat down in the throne, he looked above him. And there above him was hung a sword. And on the hilt of that sword was holding it up, was a single hair from a horse's tail. And he started getting scared. He goes, why is there a sword? He said, well, I wanted you to see what it was like to be king. Yeah, you get to eat nice food. Anytime that sword can fall on you. Because there's always somebody trying to off the king. There's a certain inherent danger there. And that's what the King Dionysus was trying to get across to Damocles, that any second something can happen. And this verse is saying that you need to be careful when you're eating with a ruler, that you comport yourself properly for the same kind of a danger. Verses 4 and 5. Labor not to be rich, cease from thine own wisdom. Wilt thou set thy eyes upon that which is not? For riches certainly will make themselves wings. They fly away as an eagle towards the heaven. How many people feel that way every payday? That your paycheck just grows wings and flies away. Right here it says, labor not to be rich. Why? Because riches are temporary. The stock market crashed in 1929, and within a year, 2,294 banks failed, losing $1.7 billion of deposits. Now, that was $1929. So it's a whole lot more now. The stock market then, in one day, lost $14 billion of valuation. People had money invested in the stock market, and then they blinked their eyes and the money was gone. It just gone. The stocks that they bought for $100 a share were now worth 25 cents a share. The money was just gone. That's why people jumped off buildings. That's why all this craziness happened. And most people believe that's what spurred in the Great Depression. Between 2007 and 2009, do you remember the whole housing crisis that caused all that junk? 8 trillion with a T, $8 trillion of value evaporated in those 2 years. That's what it means when it says your riches will make wings and fly away. Then it says, cease from thine own wisdom. Your own wisdom is suspect. You think that you're smart, but you're not all that smart, is what the Bible's saying. It says, putting your trust in riches is setting your eyes on things that don't really exist. And that's what it says, wilt thou set their eyes on that which is not? In other words, you say, okay, Elon Musk is supposedly one of the richest men in the world. Elon Musk does not have an income. He owns a big portion of several companies that's worth a lot of money. If those companies were suddenly to go out of business, Elon Musk would have hardly nothing left. If you set your eyes on the things that are not, you're going to be disappointed. The Bible is basically saying we should not strive to be rich. Money should not be our God, the thing that we live our lives for, because it goes away. Now, here's the thing. There's nothing wrong with riches. There are a lot of Christians who have used their riches for a good thing. One of the preachers was influential in my life is Jack Hiles. He started a college called Hiles Anderson College out in Indiana. And that was, I applied to the college. I was going to go, never did. I met Rebecca, and then I changed my plan. But Russell Anderson owned a whole bunch of companies. He worked himself up from being a coal miner and plowing with a mule to owning a whole bunch of different companies. He gave millions of dollars to foreign missions. They attribute 25 million people being saved due to the ministries that he funded. 25 million people being saved. He co-founded Hiles Anderson College and the Commonwealth Baptist College. And in all, over 3,000 churches were started due to his support. All this because there's a man of God who had money, who put God first and used the wealth that God gave him for the furtherance of the kingdom. God's not against rich people, but he is against rich people who put their money before their faith. Dan Cathy's another example. Dan Cathy, founder of Chick-fil-A, has invested millions of dollars, giving it to all kinds of different ministries and organizations that were good. The fact of the matter is, you can, with wealth, do good things for the cause of Christ. And you can, with wealth, do a whole lot of bad things. The focus is not the money. The Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil. Man cannot serve two masters. Either you will love one and hate the other. And if a rich man hates, if they love God more than they love their money, then the money can be a blessing. Otherwise, it's going to be a curse. That's what this is trying to say. Verses 6 through 8. Eat thou not the bread of him that have an evil eye, neither desire his dainty meats. For he thinketh in his heart, so is he. Eat and drink, saith he to thee, but his heart is not with thee. The morsel which thou hast eaten shalt thou vomit up and lose thy sweet words. The evil eye here is a covetous man, someone who begrudges every bite that you're eating. It's a stingy and miserly person. Have you ever been invited out to eat by somebody who's in multi-level marketing? Have you ever been, I remember there was this, I forget the name of it, America something or another. There's multi-level marketing. A friend said, hey, would you like to go out to dinner? And I'm like, sure. I was thinking, man, I'd like this guy. Maybe we were trying to get closer to us as a couple. We went out, and of course, it wasn't like they were, treating us to a steak dinner. It was a multi-level marketing. They didn't have that kind of money. But it was like Wendy's or something. But the thing is, the only reason we were there is because they saw us as prey for their organization. You get what I'm saying? And that's the idea here. This miserly, stingy guy is trying to pretend to be all this and all so generous, but inside, he doesn't care about you. He wants to make merchandise of you. And once you realize that there's nothing sincere there, then it'll make you sick at your stomach. You see that a lot in sales. Somebody will, Pharmaceutical sales does that a lot. We were working for the state, went to a conference in Chicago, and one of the vendors that we have that's paying for one of the computer systems took us all out to eat at this real fancy steak place. And I felt way out of place. Like this one guy, you ever seen a tomahawk steak? Those things are like $75. I mean, they're huge. He got one of them things. It was all on the vendor's dime. You don't think they're spending that money just to be nice to you, do you? They have an ulterior motive, and they're making merchandise of you. It's like you go to any kind of vacation spot, and you run across these people who want to show you their timeshare. And there's, we'll give you a free ticket. They're not giving you free tickets because they want you to see the Dixie Stampede or anything like that. They're giving you free tickets as the same incentive as the worm on the hook that the fisherman throws in the water. They're trying to get you reeled up so they can charge you a whole bunch of money for a whole bunch of nothing. So that's what this verse is about. It's talking about don't fall prey to this. Don't fall prey to somebody who's trying to make merchandise out of you. And it's a good advice for anybody. By the way, if you're ever going to go to a timeshare thing, practice beforehand in the mirror. Say, no, not interested, no. And that's the only way I'd ever do it. Rebecca and I went on a date night, and they had this thing down at Town Center that says, win this boat. And I was like, I don't really need a boat, but it would be kind of cool if I won it. So we filled out the thing, dropped it in the bucket, and we got a phone call. You've won a free vacation. Now, I'm like, it was like a dog, you know, they hear something outside their ears perk up. Huh? It's like free vacation. And something. So I called them back a little bit suspicious. And there's a place in Virginia called Massanutten. Massanutten. It's a 4 seasons resort. So Rebecca and I thought, well, this would be nice. We could go down there and have a little weekend away. So we went down there, and this guy, he found out we were Christians. So automatically he went over to the Christian station on the radio in the cars. He was showing us around this property. Now, if you skied, it might be worth something, but we don't ski, and there ain't nothing there if you don't ski. And he's like, aren't you excited? I'm like, no. So why aren't you excited? I said, I don't want to be here. I don't want to. He kind of got mad at me towards the end. And then they brought in the other closers. So I got a deal for you. We can give you a discount. I'm like, I don't want to be here. And then the guy, I mean, he looked at Laura and I think, was Benny there? He says, well, your kids are excited. And Laura's like, yeah, like just real insincere. That was one of the time I enjoyed saying no to somebody. But the whole point of the thing is, the whole point is what I'm saying is this verse is warning you that there are people out there who will make merchandise out of you. They'll act like they're your friend. They'll put your arm around you, but they're just trying to take advantage of you. And the stuff that they send, hey, how sweet would that, if you go to that vacation thing and then you buy a $30,000 hotel room that you have to pay on every single month for years and years, even if you go there or don't, and you can't even give it away because nobody wants it, how sweet will that food be then? You get what I'm saying? All right. Speak not in the ears of a fool, he will despise the wisdom of thy words. Basically, if you try to speak wisdom to a fool, he'll not listen to you. There's one of the things that the Romans used to do whenever they would have these big celebrations of their heroes. And one of the jobs when they're having their triumphs and they have the Caesar rolling through on his chariot, they'd have a slave standing behind Caesar whispering into his ear, you are but a human, you are but a human, to remind him that he is nothing more than just a human. And to me, it's just like you try to whisper some good advice into the ears of a fool, he's going to hate you. Remove not the old landmarks and enter not into the fields of the fatherless, for their Redeemer is mighty, and he shall plead their cause with thee. So to remove the old landmarks, last week we talked about that. We talked about how that the landmarks is how they set the property the divisions. And basically, imagine if you're sneaky and your title deed says you own from this big rock to that big rock over there, and you sneak out every night, once a week at midnight when nobody's awake, and move that rock over an inch or a foot, thinking nobody will notice if you move the landmarks. Then all of a sudden now you own 47 more feet because you stole the neighbor's land, right? The idea is that. But we also talked about how that we should not remove the old landmarks, the things that just because that it's new doesn't make it better. Sometimes tearing something down doesn't make any sense. Talking about G.K. Chesterton that talked about a lamp, that talking about people wanting to tear down a lamp post. And some people, they all said we need to tear it down. The preacher's like, hey, just calm down a minute. We don't need to tear that down. And they tore it down anyway. And then, but the problem is somebody tore it down because they didn't want a gas street light today. Be like they didn't want a halogen bulb. They wanted LEDs. They tore down a lamp post. Somebody else, they didn't want any light there at all because they were having some shady dealings going on. And somebody else just thought that they didn't like the style of that lamp post. And now the problem is all these different reasons. Some people just want to tear something up. And so now they have no lamp posts. And now they get to have the conversation about what kind of lamp post they want in the dark because they tore down a lamp post. Not everything in our culture needs to be torn down just because it's old. There's a lot of really good things that come about by people who are smarter than you, and you should never tear it down unless you know why you're tearing it down. If you find a fence in a field, the idea is, no, we ought to tear down this fence. Why don't you find out why they put it there? There might be a really good reason, like the angry bull that may be charging at you in a few seconds when you tear the gate down. But don't tear down the landmark, and it says, enter into the fields of the fatherless. This is talking about those who are underprivileged. In the society back then, if the father dies, the whole family was suffering. And it says, you enter into the fields of the fatherless who has no protector. You think you can take advantage of them, but their redeemer, their kinsman who's going to protect them is greater than you, and God is the one who's going to be pleading his case. In other words, when you try to take advantage of the weak, you've got God to answer to. And that's the same today. If you try to take advantage of the poor, if you oppress the poor, you're going to answer to God. Apply thy heart to understanding and thy ears to the words of knowledge. In other words, try hard to learn and listen to the words of knowledge. It's never wrong for you to learn. It's always a good thing to learn more. Withhold not correction from the child, for if thou beatest him with a rod, he shall not die. Thou shalt beat him with a rod and shall deliver his soul from hell. Now, there's two things in scope here. Now, number one, when it says beat, it means spank. It doesn't mean beat him into a bloody pulp. That's not what the Bible's talking about, okay? It's talking about, there's two things. It's talking about correction, and correction doesn't have to be corporal punishment. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. Correction can even be putting your kids into timeout. I will tell you, though, corporal punishment works. It's not an evil thing if done right. Like anything else, you can do it wrong. But the thing is, it's not wrong to spank. It's not abuse to spank. Spanking is quicker and easier. When you put your hand on a stove and you said, ow, it burns me, then all of a sudden you're going to be a lot more careful not to put your hand on the stove again. Little Johnny or little Susie does something wrong and they get a little ouchie on their bottom, it reinforces that lesson to them that that's not something they should do. Never should be done out of anger. Should always be done for a reason, and it should be very limited, and it should never cause any kind of you should never hurt your child is what I'm trying to say. But the Bible's pretty clear that spanking is okay. God's okay with spanking. And if you don't like spanking, you need to take it up with God. He's the one who made us. Verse 15. My son, if thy heart be wise, my heart shall rejoice, even mine. Yea, my reins shall rejoice when thy lips speak right things. This is referring back to those kids who were corrected before. The ones whose parents said, this is how far you can go. By the way, the most important thing you can do is to be consistent with your kids. I know most of our kids are almost all grown up now. Chris has got the youngest, and I'm pretty sure that they're consistent. But being consistent with your kids is the most effective thing in the world. They know that there is going to be a penalty for something. That's one of the most important things. But those children who are corrected, it says, if thy heart be wise, my heart shall rejoice, even mine. Yea, my reins shall rejoice when thy lips speak the right things. Those children who are raised properly and corrected, verse 13 and 14, they bring joy to their parents. They don't bring heartache. Verses 17 and 18. Let not thine heart envy the sinners, But be thou in fear of the Lord all the day long. For surely there is an end, and thine expectation shall not be cut off. You ever envy a sinner? There's been times that you look at them and you say, I wish I could lie like that. You know what I'm saying? You look at them and they have advantage, and then there's part of your heart, the ungodly part says, it would be so much easier in my life if I acted like that. It'd be so much better. That's what the Bible is saying. Don't envy those sinners. They're doing these things, and they may seem to get away with it right now. It says, but there will come an end. It says, you need to fear the Lord all the day long. The sinner's benefits of temporary pleasure will always end in permanent pain. That's just the truth of things. And what the Bible here is telling us is don't sit there and say, man, it'd be a whole lot better if I was able to live like that person or live like that. Listen, there's the end of it, even if you take out, here's the truth. Most of the time, if you choose to sin, you're choosing to suffer. There will come consequences temporarily here on this earth for the way that you live your life. Somebody has dalliances with other women that aren't their wives at work, and they think they got away with it because their wife's not found out. Guess what? Their wife will find out. Then they're divorced and they have nothing. You get what I'm saying? The fact of the matter is, there's always consequences to behaviors. And while you only see the benefits that somebody who lied to the boss and said they were at work on time and they came in a half an hour late and left a half an hour early and they're sneaking, the fact of the matter is, there's somebody watching them. There will come a consequence. Almost always there will be a consequence. Even if there's not one here, there will be one later on. We should fear the Lord. I live my life the way I live it, not because I'm afraid somebody will catch me, because it's the right thing to do. You get what I'm saying? I don't cheat on my wife because I'm afraid she'll find out if I do. I don't do it because it's wrong. I don't lie because somebody might find out that I'm lying. I don't lie because God said not to lie, so I don't lie. It's just that simple. You see what I mean? That's the Bible saying. Don't envy the sinner. Don't try to emulate them. You just follow what God said, and they're going to get their comeuppance in the end. All right? Verse 19 and 21. How are we doing for time? Hear thou, my son, and be wise, and guide thy heart in all thy ways. Be not among the winebibbers, among the riotous eaters of flesh. For the drunkard and the glutton shall come to poverty, and drowsiness shall close a man with rags. There's two groups of people here the Son is warned away from, the drunks and the gluttons. Both of them for the same reason. If you follow that way of living, you're going to be poor. When I was in the Army, I'd see guys get their paycheck. Dave could probably attest to this. They'd get paid on a Friday and be broke by that Monday because they went out and spent every dollar that they had getting drunk and running after women and all this stuff. Then they have nothing left. I've seen people get their paycheck and they go out and eat at big old fancy restaurants, and then they're eating peanut butter sandwiches the rest of the month because they ain't got no more money left. But this is saying that avoid the drunkard, avoid the glutton. In other words, you need... Moderation is key, but it's saying here, just avoid the drunks. When I was going through respiratory therapy school, the chow hall closed at a certain time. And if I wasn't paying attention, I'd miss the chow hall time. Now, they feed you for free at the chow hall, just so you understand that. So what I would do, because I was lazy, I didn't want to go out and buy food, so I would order a pizza and they would deliver it to the barracks. But they could only serve one big pizza. That's all it was. And that was a whole lot of food and a whole lot of money for one person to have one meal, because I was too lazy to go to the chow hall, but served it for free. That was an unwise thing. The thing is it falls into laziness. Laziness, gluttony, drunkenness, all that will lead to poverty. Now, we're going to see a little bit later, the Bible is going to talk very strongly against alcohol. I think a Christian wisely should be a teetotaler and not touch alcohol at all. I think that it doesn't do you any good, and it will cost you a whole lot of pain in the long run. Hearken unto the father that beget thee, and despise not the mother when she is old. Listen to your parents, kids. They're wiser than you. And treat your parents with respect when they get older. 23. Buy the truth and sell it not, and wisdom and instruction and understanding. Stick with the truth. Stick to wisdom and instruction. Have you guys ever heard of Alexander Solzhenitsyn? I can't say his name right. He was a Russian, and they sent him to the Siberian Gulag. And he wrote a book called the Gulag Archipelagos. And in the Gulag Archipelagos, he was talking about how that the Soviet Union was trying to punish all these individuals who didn't do the things that they liked for them to do. Sometimes they were Christians, sometimes they were just dissenters of one sort of another. But one of the things that he said in that book is, live not by lies. He says, well, you should not live your life according to the lies of the ruling political party. That applies today. It says to buy the truth and sell it not. When you're talking investments, the idea is that you buy something cheap and wait till it gets expensive, then you sell it. It's saying buy the truth. Spend whatever it takes to get the truth, and then hold on to it tightly. We as Christians, we have the truth of Jesus Christ. We should never let that go. 24 and 25. The father of the righteous shall greatly rejoice, and he that begetteth a wise child shall have joy of him. Thy father and thy mother shall be glad, and she that bare thee shall rejoice. Parents of kids that live right will have great joy in their children. Have you ever seen somebody, when you walk in, the first thing you got to do is show you a picture of their little Johnny. Here's my little Johnny. This is his wonderful wife. Isn't it just wonderful? They go to church here, and they do this, and they do this, and Johnny, wonderful. It brings great joy to the parents when the kids are living right. I've also seen the exact opposite. How's Sally doing? And the parents look down, and there's tears start to break out in the corners of their teeth, corners of their eyes. And they start talking about how they're messed up with this or they're messed up with that, and they're worried about their kids, and they don't know how, they don't even know where their kids are. It's important when we raise our children to raise them properly. So, this one is what the Bible says. My son, give me thine heart. Verse 26. And let thine eyes observe my ways. In other words, pay attention to me. I'm telling you something important. For a whore is a deep ditch, and a strange woman is a narrow pit. She lieth in wait as for prey, and increaseth the transgressors among men. This is a warning against prostitution. And this warning is laid out to potential clients and not to purveyors, but the warning is real. Prostitution is a deadly, dangerous thing. It's not a harmless thing. There's a movement today to legalize prostitution. You realize that? They're pushing, and they don't even want to call it prostitution anymore. They want to call it sex work, because that doesn't sound as bad as prostitution. But here's the fact. It is a horrible, awful, disgusting, degrading, dehumanizing thing. The thing that God created for a man and a woman in the bonds of matrimony, that is being sold as a commodity, as a disgusting thing to God. It's disgusting for those who purchase it. It's disgusting for those who sell it. God is against all of it. It's wrong. And if you don't have to look very far, it says frequenting a prostitute is like falling into a deep ditch. If you fall into a deep ditch, you're going to get dirty, you're going to get wet, you're going to get hurt, and it's going to be hard to get out of the ditch. That's what it's talking about. In a study of female prostitutes, 1 out of 5 had an STD. The other 4 just hadn't caught up yet, pretty much. And even for those who are selling it, women are 18 times more likely to be murdered than others if they're engaged in prostitution. 18 times more likely. The thing is you can't dehumanize people to that degree without taking away their humanity too. And it's a disgusting, wicked thing. And the Bible's against it. And we should never support any kind of movement to destigmatize or decriminalize something that awful. Now, there are people who are involved in that who need help. There's people who are desperate, and if somebody would reach out to try to help them, we might be able to help them avoid it. But the fact of the matter is, the Bible is pretty clear that that is a wrong and horrible thing. Verse 29. So the rest of all this here is going to be talking about alcohol. So we're talking about the big ones here. Who hath woe? Who hath sorrow? Who hath contentions? Who hath babblings? Who hath wounds without cause? Who hath redness of eyes? They that tarry long at the wine, they that go and seek mixed wine. Look not upon the wine when it is in red and color, when it giveth his color in the cup, when it moveth itself aright. At last it biteth like a serpent and stingeth like an adder. So it's talking about booze. It says it causes woe, it causes grief, it causes sorrow, it causes fighting, it causes babbling. If you ever heard somebody drunk try to talk to you, sounds worse than a Biden TV commercial. You know what I'm saying? People can't talk straight. They don't know. They can't walk straight. They can't do anything straight. They getting into fights. They wind up getting themselves tore up, wind up going to the hospital afterwards. The fact of the matter is, it says it causes wounds. Listen, you know what most injuries occur when people are too drunk to even walk. They walk into walls, walk out in front of buses and everything else. You think I'm joking, but how many of the people getting run over by trains are big, loud things? How hard is it for you to be hit by a train? But it happens all the time, and a lot of those people are not in their right mind when that happens. This is saying alcohol causes all these problems. It causes divorce. It causes marital infidelity. It causes all kind of other problems. And it says, don't look at the wine when it's red in color. It might look pretty in your cup. It might look alluring. Hey, listen. You know, brake fluid looks kind of pretty too, but you don't drink it either. Antifreeze is a nice, pretty green color. You drink it, it'll kill you. Alcohol is the same way. It's saying, I'm warning you, this booze, it looks good, looks pretty, it looks alluring. The whole society is saying, you have to be a sophisticated person to drink this poison. You're an idiot. You realize that your body is trying to reject the poison you're pouring into it. It's not good for you. There's every now and again you hear them say, 1 drink a day has been proven to... Then they come back, well, we're not really sure that 1 drink a day will prevent anything. The fact of the matter is that alcohol is a very, very bad thing. It says, don't tarry long. Those that get drunk, don't even look at it. It looks pretty, but it's going to bite you like a cobra. You go up and you say, oh, what a pretty little snake. Let me pet this cobra. And you think, well, that's a stupid thing. I never do it. Well, go drink something. That's about as smart as petting a cobra. For you ladies who don't like snakes, anytime anybody offers you something, imagine you're just going to go pet a snake and it'll cure you of wanting to drink alcohol. This is a continuation. This is talking about those who are imbibing alcohol. Thine eyes shall behold a strange woman, and thine heart shall utter perverse things. In other words, by being inebriated, the part of your brain that would prevent you from doing wrong things shuts down. And you wind up doing things you never in a million years would want to do. Yea, thou shalt be as those that lieth down in the midst of the sea, or he that lieth on top of a mast. What he's talking about here is, you ever seen a ship in the ocean? They rock back and forth. You ever seen a drunk try to walk down the road? They rock back and forth. And the mast of the ship, because it's like a lever, the mast moves more than all the ship. You know, if you get so drunk, you can't even lay still. If you're laying still, the whole room spins around you. That's what this is talking about. You can't walk straight. You can't even lay straight because this messes you up. They have stricken me, thou shalt say. I was not sick. They have beaten me, and I felt it not. When shall I awake? I will seek it yet again. The actions of a drunk are not apparent when he's drunk. If he gets into a fight and gets beat up, the alcohol numbs the senses, and he don't realize how bad he is until he starts to sober up, that every fiber of his body is screaming in pain because he got hurt. Or he's saying, I'm not sick. In other words, he has all these negative consequences. They fall down, they get hurt, they get these wounds. That causes all the woes, it causes temptation, it causes sin. And then it's just, when am I going to wake up? And then once they get woke up, it's just, then they run right back to it again. The Bible says, as a dog returns to its vomit, so a fool returns to his folly. Now, I'm not going to tell you I've never drank, because that would be a lie to you. There was a time I was away from God, and I imbibed on that stuff. And I'm going to tell you, there is no good there. Alcohol is an evil. It's an unmitigated evil. The only good thing alcohol is good for is for, like, cleaning a wound. I mean, if you cut yourself and you pour rubbing alcohol on it, it can keep you from getting an infection. And you might be able to do some cleaning with some stuff. But other than that, leave that junk alone. It's like a snake. It will bite you and destroy you. But have you ever noticed how hard the world pushes alcohol? You watch any TV show, all the sophisticated people have a drink in their hand. They always try to say you can't really relax with your buddies and watch the ball game unless there's a beer in your hand. They don't show you the people trying to drive the car and running over kids because they're drunk. They don't show you that kind of stuff. They don't show you the marriages that are destroyed because the man spends every dime that he's got to run after that booze. Alcohol, the Bible's pretty clear that alcohol is an evil, evil